Where there is nothing, there is fullness. That rather intriguing title we are giving to this number in the series of reflections that we've been making together. And perhaps it's a good moment to pause and look back at the title we have for the whole series. Our purpose is learning how to turn our limits into new horizons. And we did develop that title before NASA launched its New Horizon space project. How are we going to turn our limits into new horizons? Well, first of all, by reflecting carefully on the key challenges we face in our lives today, or anywhere in the world. Giving ourselves time to really face the challenge as it is, to think over it, its effects, its demands, and my response. And then acting simply but authentically on the insights I have gained. We know we are in an era of radical human transformation. Over 60 years ago, one of our great international thinkers and philosopher, theologian, challenged us by saying, look, in the future, which is now, either we will become mystics or we simply will not be. The radical transformation of humanity is the challenge. And if we don't take it and accept it and work with it, then destruction of this planet and life is what we're facing, is what in fact we are choosing. And so here we are. We have been taking a series of times together to reflect on different aspects of this challenge. Human life is basically relational. Somebody stated, no one makes it alone out there. And so we have looked at the different ways in which we must relate. First of all with our environment, then with the human family, then with myself, and now with that great mystery, which is the source of it all. To develop a relationship with a mystery, with a non-physical being, with the source of all that is. Is this possible? Perhaps then we need to look at the basic elements of how we develop any relationship. How do I develop a human relationship or a relationship as a human being? Well, first of all, there is some moment of attraction to the other, a fascination. An irresistible fascination which cannot always be explained, but which, yes, I really cannot resist. Now, poets and musicians and artists have captured this experience in art forms throughout the centuries, and many, many popular songs describe this experience too. I'm thinking of one which was in a musical which those of you who've lived a while will also remember, where a woman was being challenged by her friend as to why she'd married the man she did. I said, why did you marry him? And her answer, which was sung, of course, in its original version, and I'm going to spare you my voice singing it, but you remember that the words are, well, along came Bill, who's not my type at all. You'd meet him on the street and you'd never notice him. no charming face, no manly grace. No, he's not the type that you will ever find in a statue. And I really can't explain. It's surely not his brain that made me thrill. I love him because, well, I don't know. Because he's just my Bill. The irresistible fascination of attraction that cannot be explained, but is so powerful. That's how relationships, authentic relationships, begin for us. And then what happens? We have to give time to each other. Time. What do you do? Well, you go for a walk in the park. And what do? Nothing. Well, we just talk. Saint-Exupéry, in his classic story of the Little Prince, explains to the little prince who's complaining about his rose that is so uncooperative and which he loves, that he puts it this way: it's the time you waste for your rose that makes your rose important. And so in these early stages of relationship, it's the time we give each other. Just give each other. Just give to being together. The wasting time. But the time is enjoyable. It's enriching. And the sharing goes deeply. And so this way, we then grow in mutual trust of each other. The relationship is taking shape, becoming more stable, becoming more important, as we realize that we are important to each other. I'm important to you, and you are important to me. To discover my need of the other, and the more amazing discovery that the other needs me. And so it continues until you realize that my life, the good things for me, the wealth, my life, my welfare, are less important to me now than your life, and that you should be all right, that you should have what you need. You should fulfill your dreams. So those are the basic elements and the process we're all familiar with as human beings in how we develop a relationship. And you might say, well, okay, that's fine, human being to human being in relationship. But does this work for the relationship with a mystery, the great mystery, a non-physical reality, a spiritual reality, God by many names, the source of all? How do I develop a relationship? That way? Well, as I am a human being, I have no other way. I have to develop my relationship, an authentic relationship, a love relationship, with the great mystery that is the mystery of my life and of all that exists, as a human being, the same way. I wake up to an irresistible attraction that I can't explain, but I can't resist. And I have to give time to it, waste time for it. Let it grow into sharing. Let it become important to me. Let me realize that it's more important that your will is done, that what you want, than what I want. to discover, finally, that although I recognize how important you are to me, then to recognize that I am important to the one who is the source of life, the source of all. I'm thinking at the moment of a young doctor in the United States who, for her spiritual practice, used to repeat the phrase, I need you, I love you. I love you, I need you. Most other spiritual practices didn't work for her. She had such an arrhythmic life in charge of the emergency room in a hospital. And so she needed something very simple that she could repeat day long, no matter what she was doing, and this was her phrase. And I remember her telling me that one day, driving home, she was, without much awareness, just this phrase was repeating itself. And it was as though she heard a voice coming back to her saying, and I love you, and I need you. And she shouted out loud, you do? Unfortunately, pulled the car off the road while she sat there just still in the amazement of that discovery. So, I am a human being. The relationship with the ultimate reality, the great mystery of all life, the source, my source, follows the same process as it does for all my human relating. It is a little unusual, and so many people have given us guidelines in this. In most of the religious traditions, there is a mystical history where guidelines have been written by somebody who had gone through the experience and wanted to share. One of the most famous in the Christian tradition is the Interior Castle, written by Saint Teresa of Avila, where she used the symbolism coming from medieval Spain of a castle that everybody was familiar with. The circles of walls going up to the centre, to the stronghold of the castle. And Teresa used the image of darkness and light, where we make the relationship develops from living in the darkness to slowly moving through the courtyards into greater and greater light and greater understanding and depth in the relationship. But most of the traditions have had mystics who've left us guidelines. We have the seven valleys of the Sufis, for example, the Sufi mystics. But I'm choosing one, perhaps less familiar with some of you, but in actual fact, a great classic that has come down to us from the Buddhist Zen traditions through the centuries. It's here. 2 books. There are endless books written of this and different ways of illustrating it and explaining the great parable. I'd like to take a few moments just to go through this with you, to emphasize the process of developing the important relationship, the ultimate relationship, which is the purpose of my life. In the parable, I am somebody who's trying to herd an ox or tame an ox. We have a lovely little example here. Let's go through the sequence. Where Teresa had started, St. Teresa started her relationship with the person in darkness, confusion, caught up in dangerous attractions or even addictions. In the ox herding picture, the person, in this case the illustration is a little boy. Boy, girl, it doesn't matter, it's me or you. Is not caught up in darkness, but in a very pleasant atmosphere. The little boy has gone down to play, and he's in the fields and he's watching the birds and the waterfall, and he's got his kite with him, and he's having a good time as a little boy. As an adult, he would be being successful in business, making a good amount of money in the bank, caught up in making good friends that would promote him socially, and so on. But at some moment, something attracts his attention. A bird flying across the sky, the sound of the waterfall, and he suddenly hears himself asking the question, now what am I doing here? Playing around and enjoying myself, yes, but there is something else. There's another reason for being here, which, frankly, I've forgotten. And so he starts looking around, and then he sees on the ground the hoof prints of the ox. And he remembers, that's what I'm doing here. I was sent down here to capture the ox and take it home. So he stops the games he was having and starts looking for the ox. It takes him a little while to find the ox. And when he does, he realizes just how strong and powerful the ox is. And it's not at all willing just to follow the little boy home. So the boy has to make up his mind that this isn't going to be easy, but this is what I came for, and so I'm going to do it. So he starts trying to tame the ox he has found. He makes many mistakes. He tries to get hold of it in quite unsuitable ways. The last one you have illustrated here is he tries to catch the ox's tail and hold on to that. If we look at this, see how small the tail, how large the animal. We can guess what's going to happen. The boy holds on tightly to the tail, and the ox simply starts turning the boy round and round and round. It wasn't a good strategy. So he has to go on. But he has courage, and he's now focused on the purpose for his being here, which is to tame this ox and take it home. And eventually that is what he can do. With courage, with determination, with discipline, he is able to tame the ox. And the ox comes peacefully and gently home behind him. The relationship between the boy and the ox has become so firm, so friendly, so well established, that the boy can stop walking, he hops on the back of the ox and decides to ride. In this picture, he plays his flute to entertain himself. Here, he's reading a book. But relaxed and certain, he lets the ox make its own way home. They get there. And suddenly, the ox has disappeared. That stage of the journey is over. He's there, and what does he do? He just has to sit, stay awake to all that is around him. He's not like the little boy in the meadow who was playing. He's the same boy in the same beautiful universe, simply watching and waiting, ready to receive. And then the great gift comes. Everything disappears. There's nothing. No ox, no world, no little boy. Emptiness, fullness. From that experience, the world comes back. The world as it was, the waterfall, the trees, the birds. Everyday life as he knew it before. But now it's different. He has seen into the reality, the great mystery that he met in the emptiness. He sees now in the world as he knew it. And then he decides in great joy to go back into the marketplace he came from. But he goes back safely. In this particular version, it says he goes back to the wine shops, the dangerous places for addiction. But nothing can draw his attention anymore in that way. Nothing can capture him. Nothing can addict him. He's free, ultimately free to be who he is, where he is. That's the parable of the boy with the ox. And as I said, it's retold not only many different ways in the Buddhist tradition, the Zen tradition, but in all religious traditions. If you're familiar with Teresa of Avila or any other of the traditions, compare it and you'll see different symbols, the same journey, the same relationship being developed. Fascinating. It's our relationship. Because in this journey into the nothingness, we first of all discover myself. My relationship with myself, as we talked about last time in our reflection, and see anew my relationship with everything else, with all experience. And we realize that it is gift, pure gift. The desire to let go of control is a gift. A gift that I have to wait for and expect. And that's what the little boy is doing when he's sitting outside his hut, just looking at the environment around him, without questions, without the need to analyze, without the desire to achieve. Fully awake. Where the fascination I have with the relationship to myself also disappears. And I see nothing, and I see everything. When I can live this relationship in security, in my everyday life with all persons and all things, then, like the little boy, you can go back to the wine shops. Because what you have to bring to the confusion, the loss of memory as to why I am here at all, or why you are here at all, is something I can offer simply by being among the people who have forgotten, as I once was a person who had forgotten and needed to be reminded. Now, we can go over these points of relationship any way we like, but perhaps for the time until we meet again with one of these reflections, we could take time waste time, like the little prince, by tracing back how my relationship with the one source, the great mystery, the God of my life, how that relationship began and how it's developing. And having the courage to notice when I turned back and said, no, this is too difficult, this is too hard, let me go back and play. And even if you did do that, the fascination doesn't go away. The relationship is there. And the attraction is also there. And so, tracing the development of my own relationship with the Source. And like the little boy, when I get there, is it the end? Oh no. What I have to do now is sit and trust and wait, wide awake.